This JKS Jspec 2.5-inch lift kit is for those of you who have a 2007 and up 4-door JK and are looking for a 2.5-inch lift kit that's very well built and also very complete. Now, the J-Control version of this lift kit is going to be more expensive. It's also going to include some additional components, like some control arm brackets to help correct for your pinion and your caster angle in the front of your Jeep, where this kit is not going to have that. So, can you run 2.5 inches of lift without any sort of caster and pinion correction? Yes. If you decide you do want to run some sort of pinion or caster correction, you can always add a set of control arm brackets or get a set of adjustable control arms, which will also add some articulation to your Jeep. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. A kit like this that's at 2.5 inches is going to be for those of you who want to run roughly a 35-inch tire, still have some room to flex. That's going to be a combination that looks really good but also works very well on-road and off-road. Now, JKS does provide, like I said before, a very well-built, well-put-together lift kit that does include a set of Fox shocks. And even though these aren't the top of the line Fox shocks, this is still going to drive the price of this lift kit up a little bit. So, when you're looking at JKS, you should expect a well-built, fairly complete kit. However, you are going to pay a little bit more because of the quality of the components that are included. This is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation that will take you around 3 hours to get done. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. This kit includes a set of 4 new coil springs which are going to provide those 2.5 inches of lift, and these are going to be a dual rate coil spring. Now, there is much debate about what is best, a linear, dual rate, triple rate, or a progressive rate spring. The dual rate that come in this kit are going to provide a fairly comfortable ride when you're at ride height, but also a slightly stiffer spring when you do get down to close to a coil bind situation, so they're going to be good for off-road as well as on-road. As I said, this does come with a set of Fox shocks for that new taller ride height. These are going to be the Fox Adventure Series 2.0 shocks. Now, these aren't going to be the T6061 aluminum that the higher end Fox shocks are. These are going to be an alloy that are covered in a powder coat finish instead of just a clear anodized finish, but either way, they're still going to provide a really nice ride. These are going to be a nitrogen charged shock, and the nitrogen charge in that shock is there to eliminate any sort of bubbling or cavitation that you can get in the shock fluid when you work that shock really hard over time. Working a shock over a long period of time or hitting some higher speed washboards can cause some shock fade, and a nitro shock will have a lot less of that, help to eliminate any kind of shock fade. Now, in general, a nitro shock will ride harder than a hydro shock, but most of the ride quality does come down to valving, and that's something that Fox does really well. So you're still going to get a comfortable ride from these shocks while still getting the benefits of that nitrogen charge. Here you have a front track bar that comes in this lift kit. This is going to be an adjustable track bar that's much stronger than the factory bar. The factory track bar can start to flex when you get a larger tire on your Jeep. This is going to give you 0 flex, so you're not going to have any wobble type feeling. And this is, of course, adjustable, so you can fully center that front axle underneath the Jeep. Over here, you're going to have a rear track bar bracket. This doesn't provide you with quite as much adjustability as some of the other ones out there. You're not going to be able to change the roll center. It doesn't give you 3 different positions for mounting your track bar. However, it is a very well-built, very stout track bar that's going to get the job done, moving the mounting point up a little bit, flattening out the track bar angle, and working very well to get you back on the road again. Over here, you have a set of JKS quicker disconnects for the front of your JK after you get the lift installed, and I really like these sway bar disconnects. These are going to be adjustable so you can get the length exactly where you want it, and you can disconnect these from not just one side but both sides, allowing you to completely remove them and throw them in the Jeep, as opposed to some of the others that just allow you to disconnect from one side and then fold them up out of the way. These are also going to be greasable. They fit very tight, so you're not going to get any rattles, and because they are greasable and made of high quality materials, they're going to last you a good long time. The kit's also going to include all the hardware necessary to get it installed, as well as some brake line relocation brackets that are going to be necessary to ensure you don't pull a brake line taut when you're off-road. This is a $1,200 lift kit, and a lot of that cost does come from the Fox shocks. Fox does make a premium product. They do charge a little bit more for them, and even though these aren't Fox's top-of-the-line shocks, they are going to be more expensive than some of the other kits out there that have a more no-name style shock with them. But you're not just paying for the shocks with this. You are getting a lot of components, and you're getting a lot of high quality components from JKS, which are going to make this lift kit ride really well and last a long time. So in my opinion, this is worth the $1,200 price tag. This is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation that will take you around 3 hours to get done. This isn't a kit that includes control arms, so you're not going to have to do that additional work, which will cut down on the time a little bit. You're going to want to have a socket set and some wrenches handy, of course a jack and some jack stands. If you have access to a lift and either pneumatic tools or electric tools, it'll definitely speed the process along. And I always recommend spraying all of the applicable nuts and bolts with a good penetrating oil well before you get started. That time spent is going to pay dividends in the end, speeding up your installation.
Now that we've got the Jeep in the air, we're going to remove the wheels. We're going to start off by supporting the rear axle with the pole jack. Then we're going to move on to removing the shocks, the track bar, the springs, and the sway bar end links. Using an 18mm socket and wrench, we can remove our lower shock bolt. Using a 16mm socket and a long extension, we can unbolt the upper shock mount bolts. Next, we're going to remove the lower sway bar link bolts using an 18mm socket and wrench. Next, we're going to remove the lower track bar bolt. Next, we're going to remove the e-brake bracket. I'm going to let this hang. Next, we'll use a 10mm and remove the brake line bracket. Next, we can lower our pole jacks down to lower the rear and remove the stock springs. So first step for the rear installation is we're going to bolt our bump stop extenders to the rear using the blocks provided and the provided hardware pack. Using two 13mm wrenches, we can tighten these up. Next, we need to drill some new holes for our lower sway bar end links to accommodate the new lift. So we need to measure up 1.25 inches from the center of the factory hole. Make a mark, and we need to drill a 1/2 inch hole. Next, we can mount our track bar relocation bracket. And this spacer will go up through here. We're going to use the factory bolt and nut tab for the bottom portion of the track bar bracket. Next, we can bolt up the support bracket. And now we can loosely install our U-bolt. We can go back and tighten everything up now. Next, we're going to tighten up the 2 U-bolt nuts with a 19mm socket. And you want to do this evenly, so don't tighten one side all up at once. Do a little bit on one side, then swap to the other side. Now that we have our track bar bracket installed, we can begin by putting our shocks in, and then we'll move on to the springs and we'll reattach our sway bar end links and put our brake line drop brackets in. Next, we're going to install our new springs, and we're going to reuse the factory spring isolator for the top. Next, we can reconnect our sway bar end links. Next, we're going to install the rear brake line drop brackets. We use the factory hardware for the upper bolt. We're going to use the supplied hardware for the bottom hole. Top bolt's a 10mm. Bottom bolt is an 11mm. Next, we're going to start off by removing the lower shock bolts using an 18mm socket and wrench. Next, we can move on to removing the sway bar end links. 18mm socket and wrench. Next, we can remove the lower track bar bolt. And we'll remove the upper track bar bolt next and completely remove the front track bar. Next, we can remove our brake line bracket to make room for the brake line bracket extender. Next, we can lower the front diff a little bit, and we can pull our springs out. Next, using a 16mm ratchet wrench, we're going to disassemble the top portion of the shock. Next, we need to drill a hole in our spring perch so we can add a bump stop extension. I'm going to install this spring with the bump stop spacer loose. It'll be less distance. I have to compress the spring and make it easier for installation. And once we get the spring in, then we can bolt our bump stop spacer in place. Next up, we're going to be installing our new Fox shocks. Using a 19mm wrench, we're going to tighten up the top shock mount. Next, we're going to install our front brake line drop brackets. Next, we're going to install our quick disconnect sway bar end links. sure to tighten the jam nut. We can now reattach our lower shock bolts. Last but not least, we're going to install our front track bar. We can get our pull jacks out of here, and we have successfully installed the JKS lift kit. Make sure to get your vehicle aligned, and after 500 miles of driving, double check all your bolts that were previously loosened.
So if you're looking for a high quality 2.5-inch lift kit, I definitely recommend the JKS Jspec 2.5-inch that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.